is a 24-episode fantasy anime about the melancholy of He-Man as he is forced to kill everyone he loves, while friendly demons of varying degrees of fuckability do random shit in the background. That's pretty much the sum of the entire series, and why the few people who actually read the manga consider it to be quote-unquote underrated. Not that it says much about the show, since underrated means pretty much the same as cult classic these days. You might as well declare the Armenian genocide to be underrated, it has about the same meaning. But regardless, Helck is one of those rare cases in modern animes where I read the manga, generally liked it, and hoped to God they'll never adapt it into an anime, because though I am a proud card-holding animation supremacist, I do understand that not all things will be automatically good once they're adapted into a cartoon. Some of it will simply not bite as hard compared to the original source material, be it because it just evokes a different feeling, or because it was one-of-a-kind thing that just can't be done these days, not without a massive public backlash, that is. In terms of manga, the closest example to this I can think of is Akumetsu, a story about a Japanese boy with a cloning machine who decided to conduct a massive terror campaign against Japanese politicians, which ended in basically nothing. This, hopefully, will never be adapted, for the same reason why in the US there will never be a movie or a show where instead of fighting the evil dystopia, the main hero actually likes it, and the message of the show is that free will doesn't exist, slavery is good, and it is our moral imperative to spread it to everyone and every social class, not just black people. It's not impossible to make such a movie, but let's just say that no matter the reaction, the fact that it was greenlit in the first place is not a very good sign. The main reason why Helck's themes and story was this moving to people was because it was slow-boiled. The whole melancholy aspect of the story only started to be clear in chapter 16, after most of the show previously was more of a comedic manga with random little stories of how Anna grew and shit. The anime, in the meanwhile, spills the beans in episode 6. As it should, by the flow of the story. This is the biggest reason why I was not really looking forward to it getting adapted, because frankly speaking, you don't need to cut a lot of shit out of it to fit it into a 24-episode format, and this anime is very faithful to the source material. See, Helck is in many ways like Berserk, and Berserk became as popular as it is because they have decided to adapt the part of the story where the hero loses and stop at that. This gave the Golden Age arc the much-needed punch that made it look better compared to the contemporaries. Outside of that arc, nothing in Berserk's story is really that unique. Hell, one can argue that the sad backstory isn't really that big of a deal either. Most shonens have those. And the reason why I'm talking about this is because by deciding to adapt the story faithfully, they've shown how ultimately unremarkable it really is. And one of the main reasons why it is so unremarkable is because the story could never really figure out its own tone. The sad story of a superhuman is buried under tons of situational and slapstick comedy that, while not really out of place per se, is about as appropriate as hiring a clown to a funeral. And similarly, if you want to see a comedy, or at the very least a fairy tale style lighthearted show, then this show also takes itself extremely seriously and likes to interrupt the silly elements with depression, so in this case the funeral is happening right in the circus during their act. The music is a weird one. The openings and endings are utterly unremarkable, but I do kinda like the music overall, I guess because the bagpipes reminded me of fairy tale. The graphics are middling but serviceable and suffer from the bit predictable post-pandemic economic crisis like many of the animes we'll talk about in the future. Helck is the sort of early 2000s anime I've really missed. An ultimately average but serviceable show that offers nothing substantial per se, but it is faithfully adapted, fun to watch once, and then never think about ever again. The Beelzebub of modern anime shows. If you want to see that, yeah, go for it! You'll have fun for most of the time, and if not, then most likely you don't really like old animes that much. Die, I guess.